Welcome back.
Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Good, Frank. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you as well.
Yep. Another week, another perspective shift.
That's right. Here we are.
Have a good week.
I had a great week, actually. Yeah. It was nice, yeah.
Any standout moments you want to mention?
Any standout moments? I don't know. Yeah, I fell into a bunch of different individual conversations that, private conversation with people that kind of were nice. And it always, it reminds me of like how the universe operates into what we call synchronicity. We don't really know why it works, but it does. But it's the understanding that we're moving in the right direction. That's how I look at it. So when I see a synchronistic moment, it means stay on the right track. And that's like the little moments you get when you realize, yeah.
And they're actually, the synchronicities to me,
it's more the breadcrumb. It's actually
you're involved. You're playing along.
Yeah, and you actually can see how everything
is
exists.
unfolding.
Yeah, and the conclusion that I come to is we're all connected. Everything is connected, and synchronicity gets to allow us to see that.
Well, the thing about synchronicity is people will often try to give a meaning to it, and something Frank and I want people to see is that is a story. So giving a meaning to something like when the clock says 11:11, it means this. That is a story that the mind has created that you will experience. And it will come to a reasoning why that is truth. So look at it from that perspective. These synchronistic moments, like when you look at the clock, or these different, you'll be thinking about focusing on something, and it will materialize, and you'll experience it. The reason these happened are just showing you how much you're in control, how much
you're aware and conscious.
You're conscious. It's showing you, hey, yes, you're playing along. That's more of what, and even it's not a reason why.
Yeah, but even like what we're talking about here can be narrowed down to a story.
Absolutely, that's what this entire show is just a story.
Yeah, when you're telling a story, make sure it's a preferential one. That's all we're saying.
But that's that's the truth.
It's supposed to be like, because
you can give any meaning to a synchronistic moment.
So I believe. Did I ever tell you this story? I don't know if I ever talked about it on a podcast, but since I was like a young kid, when I say young kid, probably teenager, the number 38 was something that it was so freaking obvious. It'd show up in the weirdest places. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't know what to make of this, right? And I'm like 38. So I remember, I'm talking about 17, 18 years old when I started to know this. I'm like, that's just weird. And I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, that keeps showing up. Well, when I was 38 years old, I thought there was a possibility I was going to die.
I'm really glad you didn't focus on that.
So I remember like August 18th, because my birthday is August 19th. It's like,
this is it.
No, it was funny. Like I already, the whole year, like when I would think about it, I'm like, I'm 38, I could die. But when August 18th came, right before I turned 39, I was like, fuck, I got like 6 hours left. I'm going to die. And I woke up, I'm like, I didn't mean I was going to die. So I had to shift the meaning to something else, and it was just funny.
That's it. It's just our mind playing tricks.
But I literally, I didn't swear. I'm like, I was at the point in my life where I'm like, if I'm going to die, this is good. 38, God gave me a signal, and here it is. And
it's funny how our
life
mind does that.
Yeah,
we make up reasonings behind things. All they are is showing us we're on the path.
Yeah, I actually, I upped my life insurance that year.
Is that for real?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
I think I had like,
gosh,
I think I had like a regular life insurance, like $250,000. I upped it to $1 million. I'm like, all right, hey,
that is so funny.
My kid's gonna cash out, you know.
Hey,
Daddy left you something.
I was gonna say, at least you're doing it right. That's so funny.
I'm still here.
That's it, man. We live our lives playing these stories like that, but we're just kind of playing it out. Like that's why people refer to karma. You're playing out your subconscious thoughts. You're playing out your imagination.
Well, that is the key. It's your imagination. So when you actually control your imagination, you actually imagine what it is you would like to see. And let's dive into this, because there is actually a sequence of things you do within imagination, and I want to dive into this and and kind of take it all over the place, say, but when I talk to people about imagination, everyone I know has heard this phrase, this statement, this axiom, if you will. Everything that is was once imagined. So everything that exists right now, prior to its existence, had to be in an imaginative form, and then was then solidified out into the physical world by individuals, or a individual or collective individuals. That being said, your imagination is the future manifestation. So but the thing is, you can imagine the world's coming to an end, and you can do all this stuff and actually create the feeling to it. But what we're talking about here, obviously, on Perspective Shift, is controlling your imagination. Now, when you go into imaginative thought, you picture how your life want to be, and it's going to resemble something you've already seen, but then you're going to amplify it because you haven't experienced it, you know. So when you go into the state of imagination and you can fully feel that you're actually in that, and I tell people, if it's about business, imagine yourself already 10 years into a successful business, not like woven towards it, but actually in it. And get to the point where you really feel it and believe it, even though your senses don't see it. Because your senses aren't seeing it. Because if you're actually seeing it, it's not imagination. It's a replication of an imagination. So for some people, this take a little time. That's why I always tell people, start with something that you can easily imagine, that you haven't experienced, that you can get to, and start with that. And when you see that works, again, there is nothing bigger.
It's game on.
The game is on. Because we create the severity and the minuscule in life. The universe doesn't see it that way. You know, everything's equal in the universe. We're the ones who put the pressure on. So when you get into a state of imagination, seeing yourself living this supreme life, and you manifest, you get into this place of feeling the feeling of it, and you get like this hair standing up back of your neck, and you see the image. In that moment, drop the image and don't try to figure out how, but hold on to the feeling. And even let the feeling fleet away and then go about your day. That feeling, like when I get excited about something, is when I get up early in the morning and, clean out my closet. You know what I'm saying? Like seriously, and I actually enjoy cleaning out my closet, or I spend an extra hour at the gym that I normally wouldn't have. Or doing something I like, I find more time to do it. Even though that wasn't part and parcel, well, it wasn't seemingly part of my imagination, it actually is part and parcel of it in a degree when you see it. Because we don't know what's going to happen. So when I get into this imaginative state and I feel the feeling of what it's going to be like to actually experience that thing, it generates a frequency or feeling right now of excitement. And when I have that excitement, I want to move forth and do stuff. So when you move forth and do stuff like clean out your closet and whatever it is you're compelled to do, all of a sudden when you step into this imaginative field, it could be 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later, 6 days later, it doesn't matter. All of a sudden you realize why you cleaned out your closet. It correlates. It's really interesting because I've had this happen where something happened a week after I imagined it, or something happened 6 years after it happened. And I remember it happened 6 years after I had imagination. I wrote it down and I really felt I was going to get it. And then I forgot about it. And it wasn't like 6.5, almost 7 years later when I realized for a whole year I was living that thing that I imagined years ago. And I'm like, holy cow. It happened so subtle that I forgot that I even had this imaginative thought about it 6 years ago. I almost forgot about it. If you keep having to go to bed every night and picture and imagine it, you're actually pushing it away. One time, generate the feeling. And then move off that feeling in that moment and then see where it takes you.
It's weird that the mind does that because we will picture an event so drastically different than what we're currently experiencing and say, that's what I want, without ever experiencing it, without knowing the ramifications behind what that entails, and what it means, and we say, no, I want that. That's better. That's where the phrase, the grass is always greener comes from. You don't think about the things, you just like money is the easiest to bring up. You know, I want millions. Okay, well, you want that mansion. Well, let's go over the maintenance and upkeep of a mansion. Now, are you going to be tied to a desk all day long working and not even getting to enjoy this mansion? Would you much rather be in a $450,000 house with no bills and you get to live? You see, there's different levels of this, and the mind says, "Oh, I want this because it's big, it's shiny. That's what's in the movies. That's what's in media."
But the thing is if you're king over your imagination, and like again, we're not like what Mike's talking about. This variances, but at the same time, if I had a 15,000 square foot mansion, I would have people working on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that would be like, in other words. What Mike's talking about is if you have this grand imagination and all of a sudden you start like, holy shit, who's going to mow the lawn? You're actually defeating your imagination.
But this is what the mind does.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? It actually
starts to defeat you. So now next thing you know, you're back living in the place. You're like, well, fine. I like my 400 square foot apartment.
But this is what we do. We go, I want this. And then we say, wait a second, and we kind of jump back into stuff. But I mean, so the grass is always greener. We want all this stuff. The way it unfolds is not always going to be how the imagination perceives.
Well, the thing is, that's why in the key of the imagination, you imagine it already having it, not how do I get to it. So a lot of people use their imagination how to get to it. That's why when they run into the thing, well, if I get this big 10,000 square foot mansion or whatever it is, who's going to, how many bathrooms do I have to clean? Now you're actually trying to figure out how to get there. I'm saying already picture yourself living in a 10,000 square foot mansion and everything is copacetic. Because when you're already imagining from the place, you're not trying to figure out how to get there. You're already there. And then the world, the universe will send you a map. Just like my GPS. I put an address in my GPS to a place I've never been before. Because if I have, I wouldn't have to put the address in. It already knows how to get me there. My imagination is only on the beach. The GPS will get me there. I don't have to figure that stuff out. So the GPS is a fractal of our imagination. It's all it is. And our internal guidance system is part of our imagination. Let it do the work. It is never our job to figure it out. That's why let go of the image, because chances are it's going to turn out very similar to the image because you have to have a recognizable thing. I don't pitch myself in the beach and end up in Alaska. That'd be wacky way of living life. It doesn't happen that way. I choose the theme in which I want to see. But if I wanted a white sandy beach and I wasn't too specific, I might end up in Acapulco and I'll be okay with that. But I end up in Acapulco, okay, now I want to get specific. I want to be in Wailea, Maui. Well, you won't end up in Acapulco if you actually were specific as being in Maui down in Wailea. You'll end up there. Now, what specific hotel or place? Well, the first time out, you might end up somewhere. But then you get even specific. I want this house in this neighborhood. So you might not get the exact house, but get the house next to it, so to speak. You could really narrow this stuff down.
That's why it's funny how vision boards, people do stuff like that.
Yeah, vision boards are great.
Yeah,
but I suggest when you have a vision board, do not have it out where you could see it every day. Because after a while, it reminds you don't have it. Like, you literally have to, it's almost like mailing a letter. Once you dump it in the mailbox, you got to walk away and go about your day. But can you imagine sitting near the mailbox, waiting for the mailman to come, hey, you want to get that letter and get it going? And give me a call every time it moves to the next city. Like, you're going to go, you'll die of, frustration before the person even gets the letter to even respond to you. I'm like, that's just a nutty way. Once you put it out into the universe, let it go. But in the act of putting it out, you're going to generate this amazing feeling. When you have that amazing feeling now, it's going to compel you to do something. Follow that. Go do that. Don't sit near the mailbox. Go forth and see where it takes you. And as it takes you, you'll see the sequence of things that you do end up. And those aren't the causations, but that's leading you there. Just like when I want to go to California, some beach in California, the GPS will tell me, make a right at the end of the block. And once I make the right, I must go and make the right. And once I make the right, then it will offer another bit of information. And when I actually act on that bit of information, it gives me more and gives me more. It gives me more. It gives me more. Next thing you know, I'm on the beach in California.
And Frank's, use of the GPS, guys, that's our internal guidance system. We all have this.
Yeah.
Call it intuition, call it spirit, call it God, call it whatever you want. But we all possess this.
It's a component of all that stuff, like God. So, God can be looked at as our imagination. Mm-hmm. All right. So that's the spirit world. And we are in control of our imagination unless we get swayed into fear. Because imagination can go in a non-preferential way as well. We know that. But when we control our imagination, we inherit the earth.
I love that. And that's so true, because all of this that we're experiencing and calling reality
was imagined.
This is imagination. This is our imagination playing out in real life. And that's why what we're experiencing right now as a human being is such a gift.
Yeah.
And when you stumble into what Frank and I are talking about, you're overwhelmed with gratitude for simply just being, because you're like, it's like kind of like, I don't want to say that cheapens it to say you kind of are now like in control of a character in a game, type of thing. Well, it
doesn't cheapen. That's exactly what it is.
But you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like,
but there's always
it's exciting and exhilaginate, and what's going to happen next?
You're in control of the character, but there's because now I have an imagination, Mike has an imagination, and then the rest of the 80 billion people on the planet have imagination. So there's going to be interactions upon that. So I have no control of Mike's imagination. He has no control of mine. But when his and mine are thrown into the pot or onto the canvas of life, that's my opportunity to perceive it in a preferential way. So the perceiving comes in the moment in which it's presented, not before. I can't perceive something prior to it happening. I can't perceive whether I like pizza or not until it happens. The imagination is the birthing place. It really is the Immaculate Conception.
And let's also kind of say, like, the imagination, that is thoughts, that's focus. What is your attention on?
Yeah.
So bringing this back to kind of like what Frank was, talking about at the beginning, when you are, picturing yourself in this 15,000 square foot house, etc., you are only focused on that overwhelming feeling of gratitude. You're expressing. So that's what you are drawing to you. The law of attraction is very much so a law, just like gravity.
Yeah.
It's no matter you're attracting good or bad, quote unquote. I put that in quotes because that's preference, yes, and non-preference. You begin to see that no matter what, that doesn't change. Just like gravity, whatever you're focusing on, whatever your imagination is creating, you experience. Yeah. And so what we're calling reality, guys, is our imagination.
Yeah. Imagination come into physical reality. So that's what the reality. So the feeling of it. So there's a couple of things I want to point out. Like when we start to do that and control our imagination, and when you control your imagination, your body just comes elated. It just feel amazing. You're not only helping your future self, so to speak, you're actually helping the world. You're actually then sending out a frequency out into the world. So the higher vibration each individual is, and collectively, the higher we all lift up, and we all get lifted up, and we can actually help everybody else lift up, because nobody can leave the frequency of planet without the rest of us. There's this lag time, so to speak. So that's why the people, we get to an understanding, we get this higher place of whether it's extreme wealth or extreme spirituality, which to me is both. There is a natural causation to want to help those that are less fortunate. But you can't give somebody something and help them, but you can encourage that they have the same ability that you had. And that's why when you see like famous people that become wealthy due to whether it's music or
film.
Some type of film, they always start out and finish off, if I can do this, so can you. And they're actually speaking the truth. But if you don't believe it, you won't feel it. You'll just, and we have excuse, because when somebody is already wealthy or someone's already famous, you already know the story. So it's like watching a documentary or a movie about someone. In the beginning, it's like there's this weird feeling because they started out in an orphanage and they were living on the street. I'm like, yeah, but they're already famous. So there's something that I already know about them that isn't there. But when they were actually in the orphanage and living on the street, they didn't know they were going to be famous. They had no idea. But they had to have imagined they would in order to get there. You don't just stumble upon that. They had to be up against so bad of a condition of life that their imagination was the only thing that saved them.
Well, and take that a step further. Have you ever heard anybody get up and say, it was because I didn't follow my dreams and I stayed at home and I was in pain and suffered that I found success? No. You don't ever hear somebody get up and say that.
No.
They get up and they tell you, no, you keep going.
Yeah.
You never give up. You push through. It's focus.
Yeah.
Guys, the reason everybody says this, it's not BS. It's the truth. What are you focusing on? Nobody gets up and says, I hated myself. I did not push through, and I cowered in a corner, and then I found fame. Well, that's not how it works.
Yeah. You might find famous people like that, but they're in prison.
Well, I mean, I don't even think that you can.
No, like
I've never met
Charlie
anybody who's
Manson.
just said, oh, shit. Yeah, seriously.
He's famous.
Yeah.
So,
But you know what I mean?
Be infamous.
No,
yeah.
Nobody is, hey, guys, I gave up, and then I made it.
Yeah.
It's not how it works.
No. But what it is when they make it, they it's not only conceptual to them, intellectually, it's actually, they know it now. There's an understanding of a belief in something, but then when you actually experience it, you go from a belief to a complete knowing. Like, now I know, I believe in law of attraction. Well, I'm like, it's like saying I believe in gravity. No, I know gravity exists. I know law of attraction works. Even because law of attraction works in the direction of my preferential, and as well equally when I get distracted in the direction of my non-preferential.
Absolutely.
The law will never fail you. So if you're not getting what you want, you have to ask yourself, what is it that you really believe? It's not what I want. When I want to be rich, I want to be that. What do you believe? And when you could take a belief and transform it into a preferential feeling and then use your imagination, you have to fully believe this. I'm talking your subconscious belief, not like, I can't just state and look in the mirror, I am rich, I am rich. You have to feel it. And that's your belief. You cannot just say it.
You are so right, Frank. And like, just to give people like an easy analogy.
Well,
but
Karen, listen.
You are
he just
so
said,
right.
There you go.
Some people in business, $5,000 a month is like great, or let's say you're at home, you're like, oh, I love to make $5,000.
Well, I was joking.
And then to some people, $50,000 is just unfathomable, and then there's people where $50,000 is a bad month for them, and so these different levels is all just a perspective, and you step by step begin to move. It's not these huge chunk moves. No. And this is where people fall off, and they're like, oh, it's not happening fast enough. And it's like, no, you still have underlying beliefs that this is not possible.
Yeah, and this is what we're talking about too. So then let's break it even down because we move beyond it. If you're sitting there imagining being a millionaire, like think about this, and I'm not being facetious here. You never picture a room full of dollar bills stacked to the ceiling.
No. So
don't imagine being a millionaire. Imagine what a millionaire lifestyle is. There's a difference. Because money is this weird arbitrary thing. Because you can imagine like, so people say, I want to be a millionaire. Why? So I can live in a mansion. I'm like, why don't you just go right to the mansion and watch the money show up? Because now if it's like, I want to be a millionaire, now I have to figure out how to become a millionaire, and I can't get to the mansion until you become a millionaire. That's the cart before the horse. That really is. You have to already place yourself already there. You might be gifted an inheritance. You might get a job that what we call earns it. It doesn't matter. Like, in other words, if $1 million shows up on my doorstep, do I really care how it got there?
Well, so I'm just going to jump in with this little thing. this is a crazy statistic that I heard. So
every statistic's crazy.
How
they come up with them?
Well, no, just in the U.S., 97% of millionaires are self-made, and 3%, only 3, inherited $1 million plus, et cetera, in wealth. And it's very odd how the media and our collective conscious paints, this idea of the wealthy being these trust fund kids that it's all just handed down.
Yeah, but there's a reason they do that.
Well, of course, and we understand that, and I don't want to get into that because it is what it is. We're trying to elevate above that game. We don't want you guys to squabble about the game. You elevate. Yeah, that's what Frank and I are talking about.
Transcend the game.
Yeah, you don't need to do that. 97% of people created that. Yeah. Like, guys, this is what we're talking about. Is like, this is not a club. This is something that is very, very, very achievable on a multitude of levels. And
that's why, too, it's like when Mike says that, use that, statistic, it's 97%.
That's crazy.
That's what's crazy about it is most people will fall into that. Now, when they say there's only 1% of the people that are very wealthy, there's a very interesting thing about that, because that's like, well, why would I be the 1%? So these statistics are kind of lying to you, or why would you say that I wouldn't be part of the 1%? So truthfully, we really don't know, because right now there's more billionaires on the planet than there were millionaires like 30, 40 years ago. So wealth keeps growing. But just because some individual right now is worth like, was it $280 billion?
Talking about Musk?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like the richest now, right?
Yeah, he's the richest guy. It doesn't mean somebody else or some country became poorer.
Well, that's what. Yeah, it's funny how they try to teach us the pie is finite, and this is infinite.
Well,
guys.
Everyone has their own pie. Actually, everyone has their own pie shop. Some people just don't know how to cook pies. So, and what it is even
and they're sitting on the ingredients.
Yeah, but even like someone like Elon Musk will teach everyone, because you can't give money away and make somebody wealthy. Just like I can't, I can be healthy, but I can't give my health away. I can't say, hey, this year I'm going to be sick so other sick people can be healthy. It doesn't work that way. But if I have an understanding of health, I can share it with you. But what I really know is you already have the formulation for health in you. You have the formulation of wealth in you. I could expose it for you, like Jesus exposed the health of the leper. Jesus didn't heal the leper. He made the leper believe he could be healed. And I had this conversation with someone, and the person was like, no, Jesus healed them. I'm like, well, if Jesus can actually heal people without their knowing, he's a cruel man. Like, what do you mean? Why didn't he heal the rest of the people? Mm-hmm. Why just the leper? Because the leper had to come to understand what Jesus understood to be healed.
The leper believed.
Yes. If you didn't believe, so there's nothing. So Warren Buffett could sit down with you and tell you, hey, you have the ability to invest. And he could even tell you what to do. But if you don't do it, you're not going to.
If you don't believe it.
If you don't believe it, you're not going to do it. It doesn't matter who talks to you. But yet everyone's like, well, you would listen to Warren Buffett. But it's how you feel about it. So he can encourage that you have the capacity to do it, but he can't do it for you. No one can. Nobody can do it for you. That's why, like, trying to give money to the poor, yes, give them a fish they'll eat for a day. But we have to teach how to fish. We literally have to teach that every individual. So instead of motivational conferences, let's do inspirational conferences, because it's not motivation. I can motivate someone to kill someone for money. Mm-hmm. I could give someone $10,000 and,
Well, speaking of statistics, I'm going to chime in with this one.
Oh, shit.
68% of people, if they were told by a person of authority to kill someone, would kill someone.
Well, yeah.
I don't know why I knew that, but that just popped into my head. I was just reading about that. 68. So almost 70% of people, if somebody in a position of authority told you to kill someone.
That's an interesting statistic.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's a lot. We are such programmed beings that we of course on its face we'd say absolutely not, but under pressure and being told you must do this by a person that we consider a position of
now,
authority.
yeah, imagine the person with
succumb.
authority. Yeah, but they imagine the person with authority. I don't know if they put this in there. Probably had some major justification. It wasn't like just go kill that guy.
No, totally. And,
Yeah, it
and
was
there's
probably
got to
like-
be something.
yeah.
It's probably like a military type situation.
Yeah, and you would understand that because that's part and parcel of that game.
Yep.
So we understand that. But so there is the ability to motivate people, but when you inspire people, it's on them. When I motivate people, I'm in control. So what happens to people who motivate people, they become their guru. Because once my trainer goes away, I don't go to the gym anymore. But if my trainer inspired me to work out, regardless of my trainer being there or not, I would work out. Inspiration, it's in every one of us. And one day we'll live that world where everyone will be interacting, mingling with their part. But right now, even like ultra rich people, and when I mean rich, not just money, but people that can see what we can see, want more and more people to be up at that level so they can experience more interaction. Because no one wants to be at the top. Because how do you have a conversation with yourself? You don't learn anything. You really don't. But when we can elevate up, and everyone has the capacity, everyone has the mind of Einstein, they just might not be utilizing it mathematics or theoretical science, but they have the mind that Einstein and Jesus and Buddha
We all share that.
and Mike have. Yeah, I'm not even
honored.
Yeah, I'm throwing
Truly
it in.
honored.
We do. We all do, but we just have to realize it. But when I say that, don't try to come up with a new equation. Because Einstein didn't try to come up with an equation, it occurred to him. The thought came to him when he was a young child. And when I say young child, I hear different. Like I've studied him a lot, heard different stuff. But I heard one said 12 years old, the other one was 16. To me, it doesn't matter. But the thought came into his head, and it started out with what would a ray of light look like if I was moving at the speed? Would it look a particle? Would it be a wave? What would it look like? And it was like the thought came into his head like, well, that's a weird thought. Well, I believe a lot of us had that thought, but Einstein ran with it. I was just like, well, that was weird. And I went on and, started throwing rocks to a window.
Well, it's funny. Einstein, what's his famous quote? The thing about, everyone's a genius, but if you measure a fish by how he climbs a tree or something like that.
Yeah, because you take it out of
Yeah,
exactly.
and it's so true. That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
He's saying, guys, we all have access to this same source.
Actually, one Einstein's, he has a lot of famous quotes, but the one that's correlating to what we're talking about right now, and I'm probably going to screw it up, but it's something like, imagination is far greater than knowledge. And I believe I got it right, but it's something along the line. So he's actually, because imagination is what actually creates knowledge. So because what I mean is, how does scientists gather knowledge? Well, the thing that they're gathering knowledge had to be created. Well, how was it created? Through imagination. Everything that was once imagined. So everything that we're seeing came from somewhere, from an imaginative place.
And guys, look at this in history. Look at Walt Disney. The definition of imagination. He found this
But
at an
come
early
on,
age.
Mickey Mouse, what the hell was he smoking?
Hey, who cares?
Goofy?
Who cares, man? I love seeing what Walt Disney did, and he gets this stuff. Anybody who takes it to that next level is practicing.
The thing is,
these concepts.
We all get it. We
all know this.
We try to figure it out. You can't ever figure out the future.
Well, that's it.
You show up.
We get these layers of social conditioning and ego and identity cloud this true self, and it's peeling off these layers and realizing, I'm just this light. Yeah,
somehow we got lost and we put the carriage in front of the horse.
Well, it's conditioning.
And this is why, actually, even this is throughout the Bible. And I'm not a huge study of the Bible. I've talked to people that are, but it's throughout the Bible said, when you come up with a thought, go forth and tell no one as a secret into what's going on, because for one, there's two reasons. You can't explain what you actually imagine. I have an imagination of me doing something, whether it's a business venture. Now, I'll share it to my close friends that will encourage me to keep going. But if I share it to the world, know what they're going to say? And I don't blame them. They're going to say, how are you going to do it? And the truth is, I have no freaking idea. So if I get linked into trying to have to do it, I'm going to talk myself out of it because I never knew how to do anything. But when it showed up, what we tend to do is we reverse engineer. And how far back do we go, right? You might go back till next year, but it really started at your birth or with your ancestors. Maybe let's go back to Adam and Eve where it really started, right? In the biblical terms. But how far back do we go to create the correlation of where we are? Because that wasn't the causation. We don't know what the causation was. So I don't reverse engineer stuff. But that's how people do it. Like, oh, I'm a millionaire. How'd you do it? Well, read my book and it'll show you. Do step by step, you'll get there. And no one's ever gotten there that way other than that guy. But he didn't get there with the book. He wrote the book after he was there. He reverse engineered it. And if you don't get there, it's like, well, you obviously did it wrong. It's like, no, you didn't. That's not how it works.
So it's so funny. I talk about these concepts with my my team all the time. So I work in real estate.
Mike's got a team.
Well, right. And so when we're all together and stuff, people will be like asking, questions like, oh, what, I got to have this website. I got to have this type of business card. I need this CRM. I got to have an assistant doing paperwork. And, they coming up with all these details about what it takes to be successful. And I look at them and I tell them, I'm like, you don't need any of that. I'm
well,
like,
you might end up with that.
Well, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But what I tell them is, I'm like, those are all just details. I'm like, how are you feeling?
Yeah, that's true.
What are you feeling? Are you feeling excited, energized? Grateful? Well, what is it? Or is it more scared? Is it frightened?
Yeah.
Because that's the direction that you're going to take your business.
Yeah.
No amount of business cards. I know you don't have to call 100 people in a week, send out 15 mailers, and then dance around in a circle.
Do you know how many sets of business cards I've purchased over a lifetime in all these ventures I try to start?
Yeah.
And, I knew enough to throw them out. Like, really. Yeah, yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah. And
we think we need these. We need this in order to do this.
Yeah.
It's like,
Kinko's made a lot of money off me, I'll tell you that right now.
It's all, guys, it's all details. And what Frank and I are talking about is, don't worry about the details.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. Keep the focus on what it needs to be, and the opportunities will present itself to you. You will walk into the opportunities. This is same for anybody at home who's working a 9-to-5 that they absolutely hate. Frank and I are not saying quit your job, you'll find something better, or this. No. Begin to practice these concepts, and something will unfold like you could never imagine. A friend will come into town. Your brother's business partner will need whatever.
And you'll know because everyone's experience.
You don't need to go out and do something just because you think, oh, this must be necessary. I gotta quit right now. No, you don't. It will fall into your lap.
Yeah. Why? What happens is, and I've experienced this in my life. Why I was worrying about how I was going to do something to get somewhere. The opportunity came, but I didn't notice it.
Oh, I'm sure.
And it came every second of every day. And I realized that I laugh at it now. Yeah, but it's so every moment of every second of every day, a new opportunity comes. But when I'm present is the only time I can see it. So I didn't miss anything. I just decided not to jump on that particular boat because I was too busy doing something else.
And so when Frank says, can't miss anything, what are we missing? Well, that's when we're caught up all in the mind with the mental commentary, It's, I got to do this, I got to be here. Then if this doesn't happen, the world's going to end. I got to make this for dinner. We're never in this moment. Think about your day right now. You were waiting, when you got to work, you were like, I can't wait for lunch, right? And then you get to lunch and, I really can't wait for the end of the day. Don't even get to enjoy lunch. You're thinking about the end of the day. The end of the day comes, right? I can't wait to go home. You get home. You're like, I got to eat now. I can't wait to, watch my favorite movie. It's always the next thing is what you're putting your attention on. You're never now. And so what Frank and I want you to experience is becoming aware of this. Because as soon as you become aware of this is when you begin to tweak it. And then you can the mental commentary that's going on, you slowly... It gets less and less and less because you see it for what it is. It's not you. It's a constant stream that's running, and you do not have to attach to it. And so you can allow yourself to become truly present. And in these moments is when the intuition, the self, whatever you want to call it, speaks to you, and you'll know, okay, this is how I need to move forward.
Yeah, and I'm assuming, with a strong assumption here, that the people that are watching are already where me and Mike are. They're not waiting for coffee break or lunch break. And what it is, and this is another thing I want to talk about, but when you stay in this present moment, you can actually influence those around you to get into the present moment. I witness it every day. That's how powerful we are. So,
like you said in the beginning,
I'm assuming
that's
if you're watching
light.
programs like Perspective Shift or anything, you're already in that place. So what's cool is, like, a lot of people, what is, like, they're there. It's like, well, how do I get a family member to be there? Well, you have to be patient next to them. We have a huge transmutation of influence over other people. You just got to hold your ground. It works. If somebody can't handle it, they'll leave the room. But most people can handle it. They're drawn to you. You got to understand, everyone that I see every day was brought to me, but not just to me. I was brought to them as well. The universe is working on their behalf as much as my behalf. There is no mistake in interaction. So when I see somebody, I get to my highest level because that's where I want to be. I want to be at my highest level. And they come up to their highest level. And then I'm thinking, like, and I'm not as arrogant to say, oh, I'm the one holding the highest level, so they came to mine. They could have been the Christ-like person that came into my day. I don't know. Like I was telling Mike, I'm like, do you ever have these moments where things aren't going good and you're feeling bad, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you got this burst of energy and you just started feeling good? I'm like, chances are it was some dude down the block meditating. You'll never meet, you'll never run into. It could have been in the Himalayas, but the energy directly, you crossed into it and it zinged you. So we are all interconnected, and this is how powerful we are. So if you want to change the world around you, stay in that state as much as you can. And when you fall out of it, do not get upset. Laugh at it. Because laughter is the quickest turnaround. Actually, laughter means perspective shift. It really does, because it's the quickest shifting in perspective. Because you don't see it coming. It's a complete, you're going right, bam, you go left. And that's why we laugh. It's like, oh my God, didn't see that coming.
And, well, that's us peeking behind the curtain. That's us seeing the show for what it is, because we see, oh my goodness, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, what I'm focusing on is ultimately what I'm experiencing. So you begin to laugh at yourself because you're like, I've been holding myself down in the mud for no dang reason. And it's like, it's the biggest paradoxical shift. And you're like, oh my goodness, I've been the one holding myself back. I've been the one holding myself underwater all of these years.
Yeah. And think about also, too, as we talk about wealth and money, the people that have a lot of money, and which we know, it's not like they're trying to save money and or keep their great ancestors or people to come wealthy, because that's the Rockefeller aspect of life is kind of done. You're hearing people like Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, and other people that are not giving their money to their children, are going to donate it because they realize money is a tool. It's not something to harbor. It's not something to worship. It's not. So what you're noticing is everyone wants to be a millionaire. I'm like, do you realize the state of mind these people are in? They don't want to be a millionaire. They didn't want to come there. They want to change the world for the better. Now, you might perceive that they're doing evil things or not doing evil things, but I believe their intent is to do better. Whether you believe in it or not. And if they're trying to do something better and it doesn't work for you, you don't have to be involved in that. There's tennis, there's pro tennis, and there's pro football. You can choose either pro game, and they both make a lot of money, so it doesn't matter, so to speak. You don't have, there isn't a perfect pro sport, So you get to choose. So even though somebody's over here doing this, you don't have to get sucked into it, so you don't have to stop them from doing it. But when I notice these people are trying to make the world better and how they see it to be better, all right? So they're sending energy out there. Now, come to understand, we don't have to try to make the world better, but if we stay in a better state, the world becomes better for it. Because we have nothing to do with making the world better. We're just actors on a film. Somebody else wrote it. Now, in this, I get to utilize my imagination to get the highest place, because it's almost like the director is giving me full range of my abilities. Yes, there's a script, but the director is like, I'm giving you an open, full range. You do what you want to do, and you give me that, I'm going to take it to the highest level I can possibly do on that set. I'm not contained down to just a script word per word. But there is an outline script, so to speak. Who wrote it? Let's call it God. But I understand, why do I imagine wanting to be abundant and everyone else does? Because it's part and parcel of who we are. It really is. People don't sit there and get excited about, imagining not
poverty.
Yeah, Now, there's certain people that live different than you and I. When I say you and I out there watching this, and you might look at them saying they're poverty, but they don't feel like they're in poverty.
Nope.
So poverty is a state of mind or perception. It's really what it is. So somebody might be living in the woods in a hut and, wearing those shoes. They're not impoverished, because they're not comparing. They don't have the internet to watch what we're doing. Can you imagine some guy in the tree looking like, hey, look at these crazy people.
Just checking in on perspective shift.
This guy's got this thing around his neck and his freaking jackets. What the hell's going on here? And he's in this metal thing. He's driving around. It's freaking crazy shit. Because that's how they talk in the, indigenous people.
Seriously.
Yeah.
With a New York accent.
Yeah, New York accent. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But so don't assume. When we look at the outside world, it was already done. Now, when I look at the outside world, just like an artist looks at a painting, where do I go from here? And then I can declare it to be done to move on to another painting. But the imagination is what created it. The painting now on the canvas is just feedback. Do I add more shadowing here? Do I add more color? Or do I say, I am done, move on to the next thing? So once it's on the outside world, it's already done. Add to it. Don't try to change it. Add to it. And adding to it is your perspective. Because I can only use the perspective onto something that's here. But the imagination is where it's birthed from. So when I use my imagination, and my perspective is mainly adding into somebody else coming into their own imagination. Oh, interesting. Because I'm not the only one with a paintbrush on this canvas. There's 8 billion people on the planet. But yet, typically, I'll live in a world where I'm aware of other things going on, which helps lift me up to another experience of, oh, wow, there's a lot more out there. So I'm not completely contained. But my focus is here. I'm in this art gallery, so to speak. And the artists that come into my art gallery, instead of competing with them, I work with them. And I add to it. One will do this. Like musicians don't compete. The guitar player will play a note, a couple notes, and the drummer will start drumming a certain rhythm. The bass will kick in. They're working off each other. They're not competing. We weren't meant to compete. We were meant to collaborate.
Competition's in the mind.
It is. Now, people talk about competition makes us better. Competition can leave you to the point where you move beyond it. But people that are excellent in all the field, I don't care if it's sports or not, they're no longer competing. They're performing. It's a difference.
Absolutely.
You don't think Michael Jordan was not competing against the team he was playing. He was trying to get the basketball in the hoop. He didn't even see the people around him. He wasn't competing against anybody. He's trying to get that basketball in the hoop. His focus is on the hoop, not the guy. If he was focused on every person, he would never got a ball in there. Every athlete, guy running with a football, his focus is on the end zone, not the, he's aware of it, but his focus on the end zone. When he's focused on the end zone, somehow he slips by the guy. Mm-hmm. But people who compete never make it to the end zone. They never make the basket. They never elevate above the place in where they're competing. They might go 1 point above. But people that are excellent and perform, even the people that compete against them, like, holy shit. You can't deny to sit back and watch that. There's a difference between performance and competing. When you step out of competition into performance, all of a sudden everyone on the field is collaborating with you. Because the greatest, like unless you were like George Foreman, which he got over, but watching what happened in Zaire with Muhammad Ali and George Foreman, to me, it's still, I watch it. I'm into boxing, but even people that aren't watch this thing. Here's this guy just beating the shit out of Muhammad Ali. He's just sitting on the ropes. And all of a sudden, boom, started throwing punches and ended up knocking him down. Now, George Foreman's considerably pretty bigger than Muhammad Ali at the time, and Muhammad Ali was already past his prime. And he did this because he went within. But what I'm saying is, when you watch that, he wasn't competing against George Foreman. He went in and he performed. Now, when you watch that, you don't look at George Foreman sucked. I don't think that. George Foreman was an amazing boxer. I don't look down at George Foreman. I just look down that some guy came from nowhere and turned this around because he performed. He wasn't competing. So it wasn't about, and if it wasn't for George Foreman, Muhammad Ali couldn't have done it. So George Foreman is equal in part and parcel of that experience. Muhammad Ali wasn't just it. Because if it wasn't for George Foreman, Muhammad Ali couldn't do what he did. That's the truth. Eddie Van Halen sounds great because you have Michael Anthony, Alex, and David Lee Roth playing with them. If you took those two, everyone away, he'd still be a good guitarist, by the
way. But he wouldn't be.
Yes.
I know what you mean.
All those people together made that whole thing happen. So we want to say, this is the causation, this is causation. We don't know what the causation is. We know what correlations are. But the causations go deep beyond the moment in which we're in. There's so many things happening in the universe, you can't even pin it down.
Well, and the reason we do this, guys, is our brain, our mind, whatever, its function is to assign a meaning and to repeat it. And so when we understand how the function works, that's when we begin to unpeel these layers of this conditioning, which is, wait.
Well, I don't know if Yeah, we can change that function because.
Absolutely, but that's what we're getting at.
Yeah, the ego mind is actually recording the experience we're having, but it wasn't meant to try to figure them out.
But what the brain does, what the mind does, is it assigns a meaning. So as something is happening, the mind is judging it, it's assigning a meaning and categorizing it in the head, and then saying, okay, how do I now connect this to all the past subconscious beliefs and keep this story, this imagination rolling as one coherent experience? That's what this brain does. So when we become aware of what the brain is doing, which is it's assigning meaning to stuff, we don't have to participate in that. And this is rising above. And this is what Frank and I are getting at. You understand on an intellectual level what the mind is doing. And so you let go. Yeah. And you do not allow it to, that's not true. That's my mind assigning a meaning to this. And you let go. And it gets easier and then easier and easier. And then slower over time, this dissolves. And this is that level that Frank and I are describing. But you have to see the mind for what it's doing in order to escape it. So you have to see that, mind does this.
Yeah, the thing is, you have to transcend in order to see the mind. So you have to take that leap of faith or step into faith in order to see it. Because unless you get higher up in the mountain, you're not going to see the valley from the angle in which you need to see it to realize it's the valley. So you have to have faith to step above. So having faith to transcend above it is why Mike and I can see that. It's not that I saw it that allowed me to transcend. The transcendent allowed me to see it.
That's a damn good point, because you're right. In order to just experience,
I have to be willing to go up onto the rooftop, not knowing what's up there.
With faith.
And then you're like, faith is what leads us down there. So people, and that's what it is. So you brought up a great point here. So people are trying to figure it out in order to transcend. I'm like, transcend and you'll see you don't need to figure it out.
That's it.
I'm like, again, that's kind of putting the cart in front of the horse. But when you transcend, allow yourself to transcend. And people are like, how do I transcend? Well, transcendence is a natural ability, but you must let go. When you accept that you don't know, you naturally transcend up. And now you look at, this is why I don't know. Now I understand why I don't know. Oh, shit, I don't really understand why I don't know. And then you transcend even higher. I don't need to understand why pizza tastes good. It just does. And when I understand and operate in this world, you become the greatest alchemist that you were born to be. You can transmute base metal into gold every time. In this case, poverty is base metal. Abundance is gold. Depression is base metal. Happiness is gold. They're the same thing, just different degrees. They're not the opposite. They're different degrees. You can transmute them into what you want. We have the ability, but you have to let go of the base metal, and you naturally float up. And when you float up, you see the gold. You can't hold on to the base metal and expect gold. The base will lie with the base. That's where in the Bible the dead will bury the dead. So move on. Let go. When you let go, you naturally transcend, kind of like a hot air balloon. When it lets go of a sandbag, it goes higher. It doesn't drop. People always think about holding on to something, letting go, they're going to fall. No. What you're holding on is holding you down. Let go. And when you get to that next level, you'll see, oh, that thing's been keeping me down. And there's just thoughts and beliefs. It's first a belief.
This all is a belief. This all is imagination.
And when I'm able to dissolve my belief, I can now go into a whole brand new imagination, expand above it. Because my belief is king. My belief is running my world. But if I have the ability through imagination to shift my belief and change my belief, I am in control of my world. How things happen, who comes into my world, I'm not in control of, nor do I want to. That's the fun of it. Just like the 6-year-old has no idea what's in that big red box. But when they open it up, they remember they asked for it. So they recognize the gift. That's how we want to live. I don't want to control who comes to my world, how the money came. I want to... All of a sudden, people that are famous, they don't talk about the money and how much they have. They talk about how they got it and how it came. It's no longer about the money. It's about the manifesting, not the manifestation.
Oh, let me tell you about all $131 million.
We're manifestors. That's all I need to know. So if I lose $1 million, I manifest it. I can manifest it again, so I'm no longer worried. So what I have inside me is worth more than any drug cartel has in their basement.
Absolutely.
It's all in cryptocurrency, by the way.
Now it's all in crypto.
Yeah, I don't know where I came up with that shit. I was watching a documentary.
That's funny.
Yeah. But we are manifestors. What we manifested is to play with, to amplify. Go play with it. But that's...
And we're manifesting preferential and non-preferential.
Yeah,
Remember that, guys.
That's it. Where'd the money come from? A printing press. And I'm being serious here. So would you rather own the money or the printing press? You are the printing press. Your imagination is the printing press. So give more agriculture and more cultivating to your imagination than to the outside world. And then, because when you cultivate the earth, the fruit that comes out of it is amazing. But if you don't cultivate the earth, the crop is going to be shitty.
Yep.
And the cultivation is your imagination.
What are you
Cultivate your
focusing
imagination. On? Put your attention on it and have faith that when I plant that seed, that fruit will grow. That crop will grow.
And it gets stronger and it gets easier to do that, guys.
Farmers know.
Yeah, but seriously.
Yeah,
but
know.
It's just funny.
But they have no idea how many apples are going to be on that tree this year, nor do they care.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
they know there'll be
unless
enough.
they're counting apples. Well, some fear it. But you have to allow it. And the ones that don't fear it, if there's 10 apples or 20 apples, it doesn't matter. That was what was meant to have. But once we get into the idea of you have to have this many apples, I'm like, this is where we go wrong. Now you go out and want to make a seed that's going to guarantee me 20 apples. Well, those 20 apples are going to start killing off people. Right? You know? It's like, holy shit, the people are dying. Now I don't have customers to buy apples anymore because they're all dead.
I lost all my clients.
Yeah. Yeah, man, Santos. No, just kidding. I'm not an activist by any means, but
I think that's like a perfect subject because imagination is what this all is.
Yeah. So if you ever had to ask where is God within us, it's your imagination.
Yeah.
But then the imagination it's not about sitting around imagining all day, but never seeing it come to fruition in the physical world, because that's just a daydreaming that never gets anywhere. You want to have imagination. You want to see it come forth. You want every painter.
And you must participate.
Every painter wants to stroke the canvas with a brush. But prior to stroking it, the imagination has to occur first. But you don't want to be one of these people that like, oh, I thought of that invention, but somebody else did it. No, do it. But sit there and do it. And what happens when you get inspired by your imagination, when I'm inspired, I cannot sit down unless I'm watching a good documentary or a good movie or a TV show. It doesn't matter. I'll sit down gladly for that. But I'm not just going to sit down in exhaustion and wait for something to happen. I can't help to get up out of bed in the morning and go do what I do. Go all day long. Go right to sleep. Wake up, do the same thing. The only time I get exhausted is when I start to think, what could go wrong? And by noon, I'm exhausted. And I catch myself in that now. It's not that I never do it. I get lost in that sometimes. I get hung up on it. Someone's like, oh, my God, you hear what's happening? I'm like, what? Where are you? We're living on a rock? The freaking government's screwing us. I'm like, the government's always been screwing us, right? I just don't get anywhere near the screwing to get screwed by the government. Transcend above it. People are like, what are you talking about? That's when you kind of end the conversation.
Get out of playing in the mud. Yeah, you're playing in the mud.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So unless I want a mud bath, then you don't get in there. Again, I understand it exists. I'm not saying it doesn't, but if I don't play that game, in other words, if I'm playing tennis, I'm not going to get tackled unless I'm playing against McEnroe. He might tackle me.
Seriously.
Sick bastard. No, I like that guy, John McEnroe.
Keeps it exciting.
Yeah, he keeps it exciting, yes. But if I'm playing football and don't expect to get tackled, that's my problem. That's like, this is what football does.
But that's what how we're running through life. We don't understand this as a game of football. Yeah. And when we get tackled, we go, what's going on?
What's going on? You're on a football field. That's what happens on football.
And of course, guys, this is an analogy, take it for what it is. This life,
is a football field. They'll beat the shit out if you don't know the principles.
That's it.
But if you actually understand the game, you enjoy it. And getting tackled isn't that bad.
Well, no, it's part and parcel to the experience.
Yeah, you actually experience. But if you didn't know, what the hell? And so as we're waking up to understanding,
this should not happen. That's what we're all doing at home.
Yeah.
Why did this happen to me? This should never happen.
I walk around with yellow flags.
Yeah, seriously.
Throw it. Foul.
That
guy.
Like,
what the freak?
That guy.
Wouldn't that be amazing? Like you're
they
somewhere.
Think differently than I do.
You're like in a
They're
grocery
wrong.
store and someone cuts in front of you. You just take a whistle and throw a flag.
Frank,
time out. Like,
that'd be hilarious. Dude, you got to start a YouTube series of just you flagging people.
5 yards, get behind the other person. You cheated, you bad.
Calling this guy out. We got an asshole.
And then the guy that owns the store goes back to the replay. Well, sir, we got a replay. Okay, that really wasn't a foul.
Instant replay.
Frank just overreacted.
What story are you carrying around with you? In
God
your head?
knows what story I'm carrying around.
Well, and that's it. Ultimately, we're letting our imaginations dance around in our heads, and we're saying, this is real. No, this is real.
Well, we're being influenced by the outside world in order to what we ought to imagine. Go within, go secret within, and dare to imagine what you want. Go big. And then see what feeling it generates. And then hold on to that feeling and let go of the image. And then watch it show up. Because if I keep putting in the GPS, the address, and don't apply myself to what the GPS tells me, I'll never get there. I used an analogy before, but if I say I want to go to San Diego, from where I live, it's roughly 5.5 hours by car. I can make it there at 5, no problem, as long as there's no cops following me. But we don't have to stop to go to the bathroom. When I'm with Karen, we got to stop at least 3 times. I swear to God.
That's so funny.
Hey, can you stop at this rest stop? I'm like,
fun.
We just left the house, And I don't say anything. I just stop. But I remember me and my son went out to San Diego one time. I'm like, we made it in 5 hours. He said, what, you speeding? I'm like, no, we didn't have to stop to go to the bathroom because we're men.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, that didn't come out too well. It wasn't received well. She goes, it's like, fine, you can go to San Diego by yourself from now on. I'm like, no, I'm just joking. I love stopping. I love stopping at those truck stops, It's freaking great, So anyway,
Perspective shift.
Yeah, exactly.
Just shift that perspective.
So if I put the GPS, the address in which I wanted to go, and it said you should reach your destination in 5.5 hours. Now, if I blindly didn't understand this, by 5.5 hours, I watch a good 2 or 3 movies. I go sit inside, watch 2, 3 movies. 5.5 hours go by. I'm no closer to San Diego than I was 5.5 hours ago. Then I'm like, what the hell happened? It says 5.5 hours, I'll be there. I had to move in the direction of the information that was provided for me in order to make it in a timely fashion in which it presented. It assumed I was going to follow directions, but I didn't. It didn't know I was going to sit and watch on the couch. But guess what? When I get in my car, the GPS will say, you should arrive at your destination in 5.5 hours. But you must proceed from this moment.
I love how you just said that because it's so important for people at home to let that sink in, because a lot of people are like, oh, okay, I just got to get in this state of good feeling, and something I don't want to do, I'm not going to do it. And we're not saying go watch daytime TV all day and eat whatever you want and, be comfortable.
When you feel
Frank
good,
and I are talking about movement in the direction in which you want to go.
When you feel good, hey, when you go into San Diego to the beach in the summer here, it's so freaking hot. You want to get in that car and go, or jump on the airplane and go.
Yeah.
You want to go. It's not like you're going to be tortured when you get there. Like, yeah, of course you wouldn't do that. So when you're excited about something, going is easy. But you have to generate excitement. If you're not excited about going to work is difficult. It's because the story you're telling yourself, And what it is you're holding on to the same perspective you had the 20 years you've been in the same job. Mm-hmm. And you can have a job for 60 years and be excited every day.
Absolutely.
It's all perspective.
That's it.
You have to shift and look at it. Because there is no day that is exactly the same other than the attitude in which you drug along with you.
And that's the most important.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Another day? Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, another freaking day. What's the alternative? Right?
And that's it.
Yeah. So keep in mind, we're in control of our imagination. We can also allow, through our control, to have people feed into our imagination. And then we're out of control. So we have a non-preferential imagination. But go big, have faith that it'll work, and just to do it to feel good and watch what happens. Because the more we feel good, we permeate a frequency. We put out an electromagnetic field. Our heart expands. All these physiology things happen. We come this permeating electromagnetic field, and we help the people in our neighborhood and around the world. So if you're not going to do it for yourself, do it for everybody else. But when you do it for yourself, you do it for everyone else at the same time. It's not this or that. It's this and that. Help yourself, be selfish, and giving at the same time. It's possible. It's not selfish or giving. It's both. Giving and receiving are synonymous. You cannot. It's like breathing in and breathing out. You have to do both. It's better to give. It's better to receive. I'm like, well, you can't give if you don't receive. You can't breathe out unless you breathe in. And you certainly can't breathe unless you breathe out. Stop trying to divide things. It's give and take.
That's the mind.
Yeah.
It's the mind.
They're not opposing each other. They're supporting each other.
Remain in that neutral position.
Yeah. Go to each side of the spectrum. I don't care. It doesn't matter. But understand they support each other. They're just different degrees of the same thing. So breathing out is a different degree of breathing in. They're different, yes. But they support each other. They don't oppose each other. So when you make money, spend it. Because more is coming. And that's how we can become very generous. I can only give when I know it's coming. And that's faith. But I'm like, I don't know if it's going to come, so I'm not going to give. And if I feel it's not going to come, guess what's going to happen? It's not going to come. So then I was like, thank God I didn't give that money to that homeless guy. Yeah. I wouldn't be eating a sandwich right now. And the homeless guy might be that guy just sitting there testing. It's like, well, if you thought a little different, I could have had a sandwich myself.
It's funny because everything we're looking at is truly a test.
Yeah.
We're just witnessing our own imagination playing out in different projections and taking form in matter.
Yeah. Did you ever see the last installment of John Wick?
No.
Oh, you didn't? Did you ever
Nope.
see John Wick?
I'm familiar with it. My brother loves John Wick.
All right.
Keanu Reeves is great.
I'll never look at homeless people ever again the same way.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why? What did they do in there?
They were all assassins.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was amazing.
That is cool.
Like they literally changed the perspective. So I see a homeless guy. I'm like, that guy's like a freaking, a black ops.
Yeah.
Like he'll just come and slit your throat. You think he's like this helpless dude, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's why I wave to him now. I'm like, hey, how's it going?
Hey, to be honest, everything's perspective. So that would be quite intelligent.
Like it was funny when Keanu Reeves would look around and like the guy was a killer. I was like, holy shit. So now I'm like, hey, that's why I'm friendly with the homeless people.
Just speaking of movies in general, by the way, and I love Keanu Reeves because he's very much so, he gets these concepts, and that's why he does movies like this. But Star Wars, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde,
it's all over the place.
Fight Club, The Matrix. These are all talking about what Frank and I are discussing with you guys right now. All of these movies, Fight Club, it's the fight between you and your ego that nobody wants to talk about.
Yeah.
Fight Club is something we don't talk about. Guys, all of these things.
Well, actually, if you sit there, and this is what me and Mike do, this is what we have fun with. We study, watch movies, read books, or whatever it is. I'm not trying to gain any more knowledge because it doesn't really help me.
No.
What I'm trying to do is see a correlation. I want to see a correlation between Mickey Mouse and Einstein. I'm still looking for it, but no, I was kidding.
You'll find it.
No, I found it. But when you could see the correlation, the base correlation, you actually understand we're all connected. If you could see Jesus or God or whatever it is faith in every human being, you see the correlation. That's what we're talking about. You see the Christ in everyone. You can see the correlation. And when you do that, you realize I'm not competing against anything. I'm in this actually collaborative pool, and I want to do my part. Because now I know everyone's got my back, and I'm going to have their back. But we create in a world that, like, in competition, well, that person has my back. I'm like, that's an illusion. They actually do have your back. You're just choosing the part to say they don't.
Speaking of illusion, I forgot where it's from, but the word illusion has been described or translated, as a phrase called, or a word known as Maya. Okay, Maya, illusion, right? That's a phrase. I want to say it's an Eastern phrase, but I'm not positive. Anyway, so describing things as Maya means, this is an illusion. You've obviously heard that term before. I was chatting with my cousin yesterday, actually, and we were talking about this, and I believe he told me the Buddha, Siddhartha Gupta, correct? I think it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I
heard something like his mother was named Maya, and I thought that was kind of crazy, and this is where my head went, and again, this is a story, but everything that we experience is an attachment. Our friends, our family especially, these are attachments. And that relationship, between...
Well, they can be.
They can be. Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. But, like, that relationship between, like, you and your mom, it can be you between anyone. But, like, for me and myself, there's a strong attachment to my mom, and I've recognized this. And that attachment, what I love is the experiences, the stories, the smells, the ideas, everything from growing up. It's a conditioned idea. It's an attachment that I've created of what a mom is, meaning to me. Mm-hmm. It's all attachment. It is. But when I heard that, kind of comparison, I was like, illusion, that was the Buddha's mom's name. I was like, I wonder if that, was like an attachment for the Buddha,
Something to look into.
It was just something that kind of came into my head.
That will be on the next podcast.
But it was kind of cool, and I was just like, that's weird,
Yeah.
that it would, he calls it Maya, it's a solution.
But it's cool because we, you think about like, how many people may have correlated what you just correlated.
It's just one of those things, and it happened to me yesterday, and I was like, this is weird, and I felt it today.
Yeah. It's kind of like one day I was walking around and I thought of like an equation, and then I found out that Einstein already did it. I'm like, oh shit.
But you see, again, guys, these are all just stories. At the end of the day, you just gotta be, and you start to experience everything. It's in the silence That's where Frank and I want you to rest. It's in the silence that you will truly find yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we talk about here on Perspective Shift. We have the ability to perceive how we want to perceive it. No one's wrong. They're going to experience their perception. So that's why I don't argue with people like, oh, you're out of your mind if you think that. I'm like, yeah, I am out of my mind. That's where I like to be.
Yeah,
that's
I was going to say, I don't want to be in the mind.
Yeah. And but yet, I won't be able to convince them otherwise, so I stop, and I wish them well. I don't.
Of course not worth it.
Yeah, it's not what it's just, why?
Well, you're fighting against yourself.
Yeah, I wish them well because I guarantee one day they will get it. I know they will. I believe everyone on the planet's going to get it, whether it's at the last breath of their life or some point. Hey, if I got this, and I'm nothing more special than anybody else, I'm serious. If I got this, anyone can get it. You just have to.
And that's it.
Yeah.
We have it. We always have had it.
We've always had it.
You'll discover it.
Yeah.
And it's in that discovery that you fall in love with yourself all over again.
And what it is, we already lived it. We were young children.
Thousands of times before.
Well, I mean, even within the corporeal life in which we are right now, as a child.
Oh yeah.
As a young child who did it. But you didn't know enough to make a story. Now we're making up stories. Now we have to get rid of the stories. And the only way to get that is when you're a child, the ignorance is what kept you in bliss. But now once you know something, you can't unknow it. But wisdom can allow you to transcend above that. So you won't go into ignorance, but you can transcend above it, and wisdom will allow you to let go of what you know. And that's the brilliance of it. So I don't have to go back and have amnesia. I just got to transcend above it and let go of what I know. I don't need to know anything else what I know now.
That's cool.
If I read a book, it's because I'm enjoying it, not to get somewhere. Where before I was reading books so I can show off to my friends and I'm not stupid.
Truly, that's what we do.
I live it. It's true. And but now I read a book because I enjoy it. Yeah, it might come up in a conversation, but I am no more intelligent than anybody else. I'm no more intelligent than a 5-year-old kid. Intelligence is who we are.
Yeah, a comparison. What is that?
Intelligence is who we are. There might be people out there that are highly intellectual, and I actually admire them. I like them. But that's just a different intelligence, you know? It's not, Helen Keller was intelligent, right? She wasn't articulate, but she was intelligent. The woman couldn't speak or hear or see, but she expressed, right? But she wasn't as articulate as, say, Terence McKenna or Alan Watts, but they would never argue she wasn't intelligent. So who are we to say that person is not intelligent?
The ego, the identity.
Yeah.
You're squabbling in that where we want to transcend.
Let go. When you let go, you float up. It's a natural causation. Let go, have faith, and watch what happens. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us this week, guys.
Yeah.
If you like what you heard, go ahead and subscribe below. Feel free to leave us a comment, question, anything like that. You can also email us at perspectiveshift2020@gmail.com.
Yeah, peace out, people.
See you guys next week.
You got it.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.